Hello and welcome to Reasonable. In today's video, we will try to find out how much financial and military assistance Western nations have provided to Ukraine since Russia's invasion in February 2022. At the time of this video's release, the war in Ukraine has been raging on for over a year and a half, with Western nations increasingly intensifying their financial and military assistance to Ukraine in recent times. Meanwhile, heated political debates and online controversies have emerged in Western nations concerning the extent of aid being directed towards Ukraine. The spectrum of opinions is wide. Some strongly support Ukraine's financial and military bolstering. Others strongly oppose it, while a rather small portion remains relatively neutral. In addition, the issue of corruption within Ukraine further complicates the situation. Corruption has been a long-standing and deeply entrenched issue in Ukraine, impacting various sectors of society and the economy. In fact, Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, an annual global assessment that ranks countries based on the perceived levels of corruption, consistently ranks Ukraine among the most corrupt countries in the world. According to the annual report by Transparency International from 2022, Ukraine ranks 116th out of 180 countries in the Corruption Perception Index, indicating a significant level of corruption perceived by both domestic and international observers. The report highlighted issues such as political corruption, bribery, embezzlement of public funds, and a lack of accountability in the country's institutions. In recent times, there have been many reports about corruption in Ukraine's military, especially regarding the drafting of Ukrainian servicemen. In fact, President Zelensky recently fired all regional military recruitment chiefs due to allegations of widespread graft. According to the State Investigation Bureau, a total of 112 criminal cases were opened against representatives of recruitment offices, with 33 cases of suspected misconduct and 15 lawsuits launched. There have also been many other reports of Ukrainian military officials and other government officials being sacked for corruption cases, even including Ukraine's defense minister. That being said, let's try to find out how much financial, humanitarian, and military aid Ukraine has actually received from Western nations. Continuously emerging reports and news pieces outline the consistent stream of aid packages flowing from Western nations to Ukraine. The sheer number of these packages, coupled with their coverage across different media outlets, presents a huge challenge in precisely estimating the value of aid being delivered to Ukraine. First, let's clarify a few things. When discussing financial aid from Western countries to Ukraine, we are mostly referring to NATO member countries, including the United States, the majority of the European Union, Great Britain, and Canada. Secondly, it's important to differentiate between military aid, which is often quantified in monetary terms, and actual financial assistance. This significant distinction often becomes blurred among individuals and media outlets when discussing the war in Ukraine. Military aid often involves providing weapon systems and ammunition from the current stocks of Western armed forces, at least so far. Many but not all of these aid packages have included older weapon systems that were already part of the Western nations' inventories. While these systems and supplies definitely hold value in both military and monetary contexts, it is crucial to differentiate between supplying Ukraine with these already existing armaments and providing an equivalent sum of money directly to the country. Now that we have some background info, let's take a look at how much aid Ukraine has actually received. As mentioned earlier, things can get a little complex when trying to collect all the relevant information to make an estimation of the total value of aid provided to Ukraine by each country separately. This is because government departments of Western countries, reports by think tanks and other organizations, and news articles published in the media basically all report different numbers. This makes it difficult to estimate the actual total value of aid provided to Ukraine. However, there is good news. One of the most reliable and often quoted sources that collects data on aid to Ukraine is the prominent Kiel Institute. The Kiel Institute for the World Economy is an independent research institute and think tank based in Kiel, Germany. The Kiel Institute has published an often referenced Ukraine support tracker that monitors and categorizes the value of the total aid provided to Ukraine. The Ukraine Support Tracker lists and quantifies military, financial, and humanitarian aid promised by governments to Ukraine. It covers 41 countries, specifically the EU member states, other members of the G7, as well as Australia, South Korea, Turkey, Norway, New Zealand, Switzerland, China, Taiwan, India, and Iceland. According to the Kiel Institute, the database is intended to support a fact-based discussion about support to Ukraine. And again, an important challenge is to quantify non-financial transfers, such as shipments of military equipment, weapons, or medicines. In many cases, governments report the value of their donations in their national currency, which allows the Kiel Institute to use that information as the baseline value. In other cases, governments do not report the value of aid, but only mention the items supplied. To value these, the Kiel Institute draws on a broad range of sources to identify market prices, and by using the new purchase price, even if much of the military equipment is probably used and often even outdated. This means the estimated total value of aid to Ukraine will be somewhat overblown, as there is no other practical way of calculating the value. Now let's start with the total value of military aid provided to Ukraine between the 24th of January 2022 and the 31st of July 2023. According to this graph, the United States has committed about 42.1 billion euros in military aid so far, followed by Germany with 17.1 billion euros and the United Kingdom with 6.6 billion euros. Other significant contributors are Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. This graph does not automatically display the total value of military aid provided by Western nations to Ukraine. However, if we sum up all the individual estimates, we reach a figure of approximately 87.5 billion euros. For reference, 1 euro is currently worth about $1.07. So 87 billion euros equates to roughly 93.7 billion US dollars in military aid. Moving on, let's now examine the financial aid provided by Western nations. Once again, this graph does not automatically display the total financial aid provided to Ukraine. However, if we aggregate the financial aid from EU institutions and contributions made by individual EU countries, the total reaches approximately 87 billion euros. In addition to that, the United States has provided Ukraine with 23.8 billion euros in financial aid. The United Kingdom has contributed 6.6 billion euros, and Canada has given 4.3 billion euros in financial aid. This brings the total financial aid to Ukraine from Western countries to around 122 billion euros, which is approximately 130 billion US dollars. Now, let's take a look at the total value of aid provided to Ukraine. This includes not only military aid, but also humanitarian and financial aid. This graph shows that the European Union has committed 131.9 billion euros in total aid so far. The United States has committed about 69.5 billion euros, and other countries have committed 36.5 billion euros, which includes the United Kingdom with 13.7 billion euros and Canada with 5.4 billion euros. If we sum up the total aid to Ukraine by EU countries and institutions, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada, we end up at around 220 billion euros, or roughly 236 billion US dollars in aid to Ukraine. To put this in perspective, this is about 1/3 of the United States Department of Defense's total direct spending on the Iraq War. So what can we conclude? Well, based on the data of the Kiel Institute, we estimate the total value of aid provided to Ukraine by the US, the European Union, the UK, and Canada to be somewhere around 236 billion US dollars. And this number will probably strongly increase in the near future. As Western nations are stepping up their support for Ukraine, the total value of aid will also increase. For example, the EU recently proposed a $55 billion economic support package for Ukraine for the next 4 years. And the Biden administration has asked Congress to provide more than $13 billion in emergency defense aid to Ukraine and an additional $8 billion for humanitarian support through the end of the year. On top of that, it's worth noting that progress in Ukraine's counteroffensive so far has been relatively slow and costly in terms of equipment and manpower losses. Some of these equipment losses will have to be replaced to ensure Ukraine can continue its counteroffensive and ultimately reclaim its lost territories. That being said, countless announcements by Western nations and the overall situation on the ground lead us to believe that the total value of aid provided to Ukraine by Western nations will most probably strongly increase in the next months and years. Thanks for watching this video. Let us know what you think of our analysis in the comment section, and make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos and updates.